Relief custody, I can walk away from parenthood. Well, that's what I want to find out. Can you walk away from parenthood?
And a lot of people step into parenthood and don't understand the huge amount of energy that you have to expend to care for a child.
Not a lot of people feel like they can comfortably say that they are overwhelmed by
Yes.
either guardianship or parenting.
Don't feel ashamed. Parenting doesn't come with a handbook, and not everyone feels connected to kids. This is not a new phenomenon, and Virginia is not the only state that has it. The state of Virginia doesn't see it as an emergency. They see it as a cry for help.
Now that's interesting.
The parent usually at that point is the one filing for a PENS petition in New York State.
That's why I can't get my degree on social media.
What happens when they cut Medicaid? You have to be a child in crisis in order to get the medical care and attention and services that you needed when you were in the family setting.
And end up either in the prison pipeline or they end up in having significant mental health issues on the street, affected by homelessness. So how do we break the cycle for some of these kids? Because you've worked with this population for quite some time. Whether due to financial hardship, medical crises such as addiction, or the impact of homelessness, parents or guardians can seek relief of custody. And so why are states like Virginia seeing a rise in these cases? Are they bound to get worse? Today we talk about this phenomenon with our special guest and expert in the area, and we answer all of these questions and so much more. We thank you guys as always. Don't forget to hit the like button. Make sure that this video gets out to those in need. And of course, as always, don't forget to do what? Subscribe. All right, we are so excited. As everyone knows, a large percentage of our households are single parent households. And for the most part, when you talk to a lot of single moms, especially, it is not easy to be a single parent. And there are definitely lots of barriers to being a successful single parent. Black women who are single moms in particular know the struggles. But now there seems to be allowances, open doors, a life jacket, if you may. And one of those allowances is a new law in Virginia, which is a relief of custody law. Now, you guys, you may wonder, what does this mean? Relief custody, I can walk away from parenthood? Well, that's what I want to find out. Can you walk away from parenthood? So, of course, we have back on the virtual couch with us, Attorney Watts, who's going to help us understand these laws and these policies. Attorney Watts, welcome back to the virtual couch.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here. Thank you for having me back.
And thank you for coming in and rescuing us literally with a life jacket of some understanding of these laws.
Did y'all see that news story going on up in Virginia where hundreds of parents have been turning over their children to the state?
Parents voluntarily giving up their kids as they get older, close to being teens or in their teen years. It is a huge problem in Virginia, specifically in our part of the Commonwealth. It's called relief of custody. Hundreds have been filed in just the past 5 years.
Now, in general, single parent households, single parenthood is very challenging. And there's not enough support system for households to be really successful. But one of the things that seems to be a somewhat remedy, or maybe it's not, help us understand, what is this Virginia custody, relief of custody law? What is it intended to do? Who came up with this?
Okay, so let's just start with, it's not new. This is, Virginia has had this policy at least dating back to, I think I saw statistics back to 2015. So this is not a new phenomenon, and Virginia is not the only state that has it. There's at least 10 other states that were listed that have this relief of custody thing. So this is not something new. But I do want to say that it's not just like, oh, I'm tired of being a mom or a dad and I can't take it anymore.
Okay.
Typically how it's used is a child has been put into the system or was going to be put in the system because their parents are probably, if they're an abuse and neglect situation, or their parents may have substance abuse or mental health issues. So what happens is a caregiver has stepped in, usually a relative, next of kin, or someone has stepped in to keep the child from going into foster care. And then because of behavioral problems or disability issues with the child, that relative is saying, I can't do this anymore. I've had enough and I need to be relieved of my custody issue.
Wait. Oh,
yes.
Okay. The social media totally got me twisted on this law. So listen, that's why I can't get my degree on social media. So they literally, it's the person that's been helping the child.
Yes, it's like sometimes if it's usually the grandparent, or it could be the sister of the mother, like an aunt, an uncle, usually a grandparent. It's generally someone who has stepped in because they didn't want the child to go into foster care. And so they stepped up and said, I will be a guardian or custodian of this child. And a lot of times what is happening is, in the situations, is that they've said, I'm going to step up and take this child, but the child has behavioral issues. So maybe they're acting out, they're skipping school, they're doing other things. And a lot of times it comes into play when there's sexual abuse. So maybe it's a child that's sexually abusing either another sibling in the house or another family member. And it's like, I can't keep both of these kids in the house. I have tried to do what I can with this child. I can't do anymore. Or it's, I have done everything that I could for this child. Like, I didn't want her to go into foster care, but she is just acting out too much, like running away, staying out late, coming in late, missing curfew. Like, I have tried to do what I can. I can't do it anymore. So, hey, I know I said I wanted to take this child in, but I can't do anymore. So that's generally when it comes into play, is I can't do anymore.
And then what happens when they do that? Does the child get placed into foster care at that point?
Even though for the person that's coming in saying I need to be relieved of custody, the state of Virginia doesn't see it as an emergency. They see it as a cry for help. So what some counties in Virginia have done is said, well, let's step up and try to provide some services to the family so that the child doesn't have to eventually entered the system. So what some try to do is then appoint like a liaison or a social service person to say, hey, let's go talk to the kid. Ask them, what is it that what is the struggle that is going on here? Like, how can we help make sure that we keep this family unit together, and then start trying to provide services to the family while the process happens. So once they come into court and ask for this relief, it takes 6 months to a year before an adjudication is happening. So while the person, like I said, feels like I have to do something now, the process takes a while. So that's why interventions are put in place. But so here's where our country sort of goes astray, is that they're placed in the person's care, and then maybe the kid needs services, mental health services. And it's not something that their insurance covers. But once a kid enters foster care, they automatically qualify for Medicaid. So then they get access to services that they needed, that they should have been able to get access to had they been on private insurance, or if private insurance doesn't cover it. So it's like, you have to be a child in crisis in order to get the medical care and attention and services that you needed when you were in the family setting. So then if they're trying to keep the kids in a family setting, then they have to figure out, how do we pay for these services that they would get in foster care, but we don't want to put them in the foster care system because the federal government is not set up to provide medical services for these kids indefinitely. So it's just like, some people are very pro-life, but you have to realize that the life of this kid extends beyond the womb. So once you get them here, taking care of a child is more than posting pictures on Facebook. So how do we intervene when we got kids that have behavioral health issues? And normally, of course, that's going to stem from, if my parents aren't around and someone else is caregiving, that has some sort of impact on your psyche. So yes, you have kids that are acting out because my mom is an alcoholic or on drugs and not able to care for me the way that she should. My father might be absentee and maybe he's, abusive. Like, I'm dealing with all of those issues, and then I'm taken out of their care and placed in someone else's care. And I'm still having to deal with the traumatizing effects of what I was dealing with when I was with my parents. And yes,
Right.
You're going to end up with kids with behavior issues that need to be addressed because they're acting out.
I wonder, with all of the cuts that's coming down the line, are these types of services potentially in jeopardy?
Absolutely. Especially if all the foster care kids are on Medicaid. What happens when they cut Medicaid?
Right.
What do we do with all of these foster children
Right.
who are getting disability and behavioral health services because they're in foster care? So they're already in a challenging system and environment, and then you're gonna cut whatever services they were getting. Oh, we're gonna it's
Yeah.
not, it's
Well, that's the problem. You know, I have not actually, honestly, transparently, I did not think about the foster care population when it comes to the Medicaid cuts.
and they are definitely going to be infected. But I will tell you, in Virginia, the large majority of kids that are in this relief of custody situation are 13, 17, so teenagers, which is already a tough time, white and male.
Oh, now that's interesting.
Yes.
That changes a lot of perspective and the stereotypes. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So it's usually when they get into the teenage years. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they're acting out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's not more I can say about that, but I'm gonna leave it alone.
Yes, and then a lot of it is like they're in situations where their potential. I don't know if the pedophile is the right word when you're a teenager, but sexual predator on other kids.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. No, that does happen. That does happen.
It's sexual abuse situations a lot of times, and a lot of times it's acting out behavior. And sometimes it's not rising to the level of criminal behavior, but it can. So it could be stealing from grocery stores, joyriding,
so these all are the at-risk kids.
Yeah. And the custodian's like, I can't do no more. Like,
wow. Help. And you said that this law is in at least 10 other states?
Yes. Florida, Texas, in New York. I remember this working in family court system in New York. They're called PINS petitions, persons in need of supervision. Except in New York, it works a whole lot quicker. It's basically like the parent usually at that point is the one filing for a PINS petition in New York State. It's my kid is acting out. I've tried to do all the discipline I can do. I don't have any, like, I need intervention because this kid, like, I don't want to end up going to jail because my kid is skipping school. Because, you know, in certain states, the parent is responsible if your child is delinquent from school so many times and they're coming knocking on your door and you're the one that's in jeopardy, or, you know, your child commits some sort of crime, then they're looking at the parent to attach liability to as well. So in New York, it's called a PINS petition, and they come to court, and it's like 3 days after filing the petition, they're going to hearing, trying to figure out what services they can give to the family to help keep the family intact as much as they can. But in New York, it works a whole lot quicker, and it's just called something different. It's not relief of custody in that particular sense. It's this kid needs supervision, and like they try to place them in an alternate setting. And that's the other thing. It's like when you're doing this relief of custody, these kids, then if the petition is granted, then they're not usually going into a foster home. They're going to go into a group home or another facility.
Okay.
Which is then again more money on the state that they're having to spend to now care for these kids.
Okay. That makes sense. So are people judgmental of parents that do that?
5 children.
Yeah.
What age are you?
I'm 27. Prior to me giving them up, I already had that thought in my head a year prior. I didn't have nobody to watch the kids. So when I reached out to the girl's dad, now mind you, I ain't thought about laying with this man. My daughter's about to be 3, in November. I don't want this man. So I call him, I'm like, can you help me? Can you watch the girls or whatever? He's like, oh, well, don't you got me on child support? No, yes, I do have him on, excuse me, I have hiccups. So, chronic hiccups is what I mean. But anyway, so when I put him on child support a year after my daughters was born, he didn't start paying until this year. So, and he was only required to pay $196 a month for both my daughters. And he's like, that's taking all my money. And then he's like, well, you're not getting anything outside of that. And it's like, he's like, if you take me off of child support, I could do more for them. And I'm like, nigga, I know for a fact that's a lie, because the whole year before I put you on child support, you didn't, no diapers, no wipes, no, not a damn thing. You, even if you didn't provide any of that shit, you didn't even pick them up so I could go to work and, you know, get all that shit. You know, I could do it by my damn self if you watch them, you know? So it's like, you know, so I know you're lying and shit like that. But anyway, he proceeds to tell me shit that don't matter, is that he got another girl and she's pregnant. They about to have another baby. And it was just like, okay, so he's pretty much telling me that he's not going to, you know, help me with my daughters because he's moved on. And I'm like, you can move on. That's fine. I don't want to be with you, but you still have daughters, you know?
I think the people that come in for the relief of custody, from what I've seen, is that they feel guilt and shame for even wanting and asking for it, because it's a family member and they don't want to feel like they're giving up. And then the kid has, you know, anger and sadness because they felt like, okay, I came from an unstable situation and I thought I was with someone that would tough it out with me, but now that person is saying they don't want me. So I think people do judge because they think, yeah, it's a parent who just said they can't parent their kids anymore. And so they just said, hey, I want to be relieved of custody, when in actuality, that's generally not the scenario. I mean, there was one guy that talked about his mom was an alcoholic, and his parents had divorced at the age of 3. He was going back and forth between the two. His father was very physically abusive. His mother was an alcoholic and didn't know how to control him. And he was struggling with his sexual identity and who he was. And so he felt like he was caught in between both parents. His parents divorced when he was very young. He didn't know how to express himself. He's getting beat. And so he was acting out. He was stealing from places. And he's like, I was the child that couldn't be left alone, starting fires and stealing out of, you know, purses. And both of his parents just said, we don't know what else we can do with you. And we are going to, you know, we are going to file for relief because we just feel like we can't do anymore. So there are situations where it can be the parent, but generally it's not the parent that's doing this. But I'm sure there's judgment.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Do you think that this is a solution? Do you think this is actually a practical solution that works? Because it just seems like we don't really know how to take care of kids who are at risk. And they get funneled into a system and end up either in the prison pipeline or they end up in having significant mental health issues on the street, affected by homelessness. So how do we break the cycle for some of these kids? Because you've worked with this population for quite some time.
I don't know if it's a solution, because most kids need more than just a roof over their head and food on the table. And I think a lot of people think basic needs are met, kids should be fine. But a lot of kids need more than that. And especially kids that aren't for some reason being raised by their parents. Then there is a whole, does anybody want me? Does anybody love me? I want to feel loved. How do I get that? And maybe I get attention when I'm doing bad things. So I continually do bad things because at least then people pay attention to me, you know? And the only reason I would say there is a spot of hope in people doing this relief of custody is that it sounds the alarm system that something is wrong. And at least in Virginia, it triggers a system of getting services. It triggers a system of let's do interventions now and get what the family needs before it gets to a place of no return. So if doing it helps give services and treatment to the family, then it's an option. But if if we're talking about just raising healthy adults, how many kids do you know in foster care that thought that it was a wonderful experience and they wouldn't trade it to anything else?
Right. Do these kids get labeled? Like if a child has one of these filed, do they get labeled in the system as like a problem kid? Like what happens to them in terms of that aspect? Or do they really have a fair chance of making some type of changes in their life?
I don't think they get labeled, at least. So like I said, when you file the relief of custody, the way it happens in some counties in Virginia is that it triggers a social service network of counselors, and then they're working with the families and trying to give behavioral services or even disability services, put in, and then hopefully, and I think I read where one county had like 100 filings, but out of the 100, only 4 went through, which means they were able to intervene in 96 cases and able to prevent the relief of custody from happening. So then it only
that's pretty
happens.
impressive.
Yes. So that shows that if we give the interventions ahead of time, but the families are in crisis, but if we give them the interventions ahead of time, then we can prevent this from going, so that you don't have to have someone going into the foster care system. Because, I mean, children can come out of the foster care system and end up doing something with their life, but it is a steep hill for them to climb to get over all of the healing and issues that they have to endure. And a lot of times our group homes, kids end up getting further traumatized and abused a lot of times in those homes. So then you're talking about, now you're aging out as an adult, and where are you going? Like, we don't provide, like, what are we providing to the kids that are aging out of the system to help them move on? We're not providing housing for them. Are we making sure they're actually getting an education and a degree when they come out? Like, what are we really doing to put them on a path to be successful adults?
Right. And that Job Corps program is also been dismantled, which I'm sure was probably one of the safety nets for some of the kids like this.
Yeah. So a lot of the infrastructure and safety nets that were put in, like, the system was already bad. But now what is it going to be with all the cuts happening to, and nonprofits are struggling because especially, in some states, yes, the large majority are going to be white men, but in other cities, I could see where it's not white men. It could be Black women, Black girls. I mean, teenagers are already the hardest group to place anyway. So now you're talking about the teenagers that are in these relief of custody situations. So they were already going to be hard to place, and now you're not going to place them in other foster care homes. You're just going to put them in a group home.
Right.
All they're going to do is
there a high rate of trafficking with the group homes?
I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. For some reason, we always talk about how we love and care for our kids, but we don't do sufficient background checks on a lot of these people, because they're like, who cares about these kids? Because they essentially treat them as throwaways. Like, hey, you're acting out. You're already doing this. Like, you're acting out sexually. So yeah, they're not following, checking to see who's actually in charge. And yeah, I'm sure they get some adult men and women who come in there with ill intentions towards the kids, and they know that the kids are vulnerable and looking for a connection with someone, and they seemingly provide that connection that this child is looking for. And I'm sure it's very easy to get these kids lured into trafficking. I would not be surprised.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I mean, just even thinking, as you said, just really thinking about how many communities are going to be so significantly impacted by these cuts. It just seems like kind of overwhelming. Like, what do we do in these cases? Because not only are we having these programs that are being cut, but also a lot of people's paychecks are being cut. So whereas you used to have people who would be able to donate to a lot of these nonprofits, now you're going to have less donations to nonprofits, just because the average person is more likely to be impacted by one or two of the upcoming policies or current policies or tariffs. So you don't have as many people donating to these programs. Legally, it's becoming harder to be these types of nonprofits. So it really does seem like it's a domino effect and going to exponentially impact these very vulnerable communities.
Absolutely.
And that's the sad part about it. But listen, I feel so much more informed because I had it all wrong. Because I tell you, on the social media,
they made it seem like it was parents giving up on the kids.
First of all, they had a Black woman on it.
Oh, Lord.
Right? Talk about the stereotypes. So that's why I was really shocked when you shared the stats about what is the population that's more likely affected by this. Because, of course, the way it was promoted was very stereotypical. The Black woman, of course. So it's very enlightening and I think it's going to be very informative for people who are in these circumstances, who do feel overwhelmed by the parenting. And not a lot of people feel like they can comfortably say that they are overwhelmed by
Yes.
either guardianship or parenting.
Yeah.
And it is a very hard thing to do. And we need to create more spaces where people can say, I'm at my wit's end. And as you said, it seems like the interventions do work and
Yes.
have the ability to work. So we need to be funding these types of interventions, which ultimately will decrease the likelihood of trafficking and homelessness and all of the, and allow them to have an opportunity to be a productive citizen of the US. Listen, of course, I told y'all Attorney Watts was gonna come in here and school us. I literally feel like I just took a college level course. Well, not even
Oh
college
my
level,
goodness.
like I have a graduate level course on understanding this law. So if there's anything else you think that people need to know about for someone who may be considering this, who may be at their wit's end, anything you want to share with them to know before they consider this, or perhaps in the process of considering this option?
I would say check your local social service board to figure out what types of services and programs they have. I mean, they're not always the best funded, but they have some funding. And if even if they don't have funding, they have connection to resource partners. I think the big takeaway is that the resources that they're offering these families in needs of crisis are probably resources that all families need. And it's, mental health. Kids go through a lot. Like we just think because they're kids, they don't have any worries and concerns because they're not paying bills. But there are other things that happen in the life of children and decisions that adults make on that affect the children that they don't realize the effects that those things have on kids, even your parenting style. Some of these families just needed like gift cards to family night out to be able to connect with their kids in a way that wasn't, adversarial. Like, can we
Right.
just have a time where we're out? Not everyone has, extra money to do dinner night, especially
Right.
let's see if you're a family of 5. That's a lot of mouths you have to feed. And you
Yeah.
know how kids are. They see something on the menu and they want everything. And so,
Mhm.
gift cards to family fun activities, mental health services, just asking, parents, what do you feel like you need? And it could just be, time away. So
Right.
it's like the services and interventions that come along with this are probably services that all families could use. And I think that's sort of the biggest thing. When you look at some of these states that are getting federal funding and rejecting it, and it's supposed to go for programming like that, it makes you wonder, like, why would you reject funding for certain programs and things that can only benefit the population of people
Right.
that live in the state? But certain states like Texas is one rejecting
Mhm.
funding for programs and stuff like this. And that's a shame to me. So I would say reach
Yeah.
out, figure out for yourself, what do you think would be helpful and beneficial to you to relieve some of the stress that you're feeling as it relates to the care
Mhm.
of the children that are under your supervision.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and then try to reach out to school resources, school counselors. Don't
Mhm.
feel ashamed. Parenting doesn't come with a handbook, and the handbooks that people do write for it, child, it may work for one child and it may not work for the next.
Right. Your child is like the complete opposite.
I'm like, when you talk about big things that just there isn't a manual to, and not
Mhm.
everyone feels connected to kids. Like I
Right.
think people
That's
think it's
very
an
true.
innate thing that, oh, you see a child and you love it and you want to be around it. No, that just
Right.
may not be it. Or you may not understand. And a lot of people step into parenthood and don't understand the huge amount of energy that you have to expend to care for a child.
Mhm.
It's a
Mhm.
lot of selfless things that you're going to have to do when a child is in your care. And
Mhm.
you may not be up for that challenge. So
Right.
I wouldn't feel ashamed to say, I need some help in trying to figure out how to navigate this
Yeah.
section of my life.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And to your point, also, we know that at least 64% of American adults have had an adverse child experience.
Mhm.
So definitely, it sounds like we can all identify with having adverse experiences in the childhood.
Yeah.
So could you imagine someone who's had repeated experiences like this, and how much resources they need to heal and to recover and to rebuild. Listen, thank you so much, Attorney Watts, for clarifying that was some good info. I feel learnt, as they say.
Good. Yes, you can. Don't do a 2-minute snippet on social media, because you're not going to get the full story.
Not at all, because they had me listen. I was like, what? Women are walking away from their kids?
Who said that? Who said that?
That's what I believed was happening based on this clip. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna need to find out more about this. So thank you for enlightening us. Yes. Attorney Watts, if they want to follow you or find out more of the pearls of wisdom that you have to share, where can they find you?
I am on Facebook as my first and last name, as you see it on the screen. But on Instagram, it's Law Queen B, LAWQUEENBEE.
And as you can see, she lives up to her handle. Okay.
I try. I do what I can for the people, baby.
Listen, well, we appreciate it. And I am Dr. T, the hand behind the handle of Healthy Bump Club, right here on YouTube, and Healthy Bump Club on Instagram. We thank you guys for joining us, and don't forget to see us when the next episode. This is Dr. T, just a friendly reminder. Don't forget to comment, like, and share. And go ahead, why not? Click that subscribe button. Help us to get to the next 1,000 subscribers. We thank you guys for supporting.